Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hospitality Webinar Series powered by the Venza Group. My name is Tracy Smith. I'm the Marketing and Communications Director at the Venza Group. Just wanted to thank you all for joining us today. Before we get started, I'd just like to lay out a few housekeeping guidelines to make sure the webinar goes as smoothly as possible. First thing, if you could keep your phones on mute if you're not speaking, that would be wonderful, just so we don't hear any kind of background noise that may be around you. The second thing is at the end of the webinar, we will open it up for questions. And if you could, write your name in the chat box. I'll call your name and you can unmute your phone and then ask whatever questions you have for our guest, Jacob Tomsky. So we will try our best to keep the webinar under 30 minutes so you all can enjoy the rest of your day. But without further ado, we have guest Jacob Tomsky with us today. He is the author of the New York Times bestseller, Heads in Beds. And he had to have emergency oral surgery yesterday, so I am so thankful that he stuck to the plan and is still here with us today. So, Jacob, if you'd like to get started.
Absolutely. Thank you. And my mouth is okay. That was due to me no longer having health care, because I'm no longer working in the hotel business. But thank you guys so much. For anybody who doesn't know me or what I've done, I have spent a decade in the hotel business. I started parking cars. I was working at a restaurant, and I heard about a hotel, so randomly started parking cars for the hotel. I worked at front desk. I worked at the heart of the house. I was a front office manager for a little bit. I worked in housekeeping as a housekeeping manager. Hello? No?
Work it out for me. I got right now here at home.
All right. So,
okay, so just as people are arriving, if you could just put your phone on mute, just so that we don't have any outside distractions. So again, just put your phone on mute, please.
Okay, no problem. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me. So anyways, I've been an employee of the hotel business for about 10 years, and it was random, and I found it hard to leave once I started. So that's how I got into the hotel business.
And I am showing a picture of Jacob in his early days at the hospitality, or at the hotel that he worked at. So that's a fun little picture of him as a young man.
That's when I was first made a manager, and that's, you know, I was really excited.
All right, so next question, what led you to write the book, Heads in Beds?
You know, I think I was standing in the hotel in the lobby, and I saw everything going on around me. I saw people trying to check in, people complaining about the bill, people wondering why their luggage wasn't downstairs, storing their bags, and I realized that I knew just about everything that happens in the hotel business. And I felt, you know, I've been a writer my whole life, so I felt like now was the time to sort of delineate all the problems that we've all seen in the hotel business and do it in an informative and funny way. And I was really hoping, because I saw a lot of frustration from guests, and they didn't really know what the hotel business was all about. And, you know, they were confused why their room wasn't ready, why their credit card had been over-authorized. And there was all kinds of things going on that they were confused about, and I felt like if I could really explain our business and what we do and why things sometimes go wrong and how difficult it is, how many moving parts, then we could all gain for that. So that was my mission with Heads in Beds, was to really explain the hotel industry for any guest that chooses to read it, because they really don't understand what we do.
Great, and next question. So a lot of our guests here are leaders within the hospitality industry. So what is something that they can learn from your book?
Well, I think you'll see, if you do pick up the book, it's a memoir of my life, and there's a really long arc from when I first started in the business, and if you go, again, that picture when I was very young and happy, and I really sort of continue on and experience bad management and sort of become a much worse employee. So I think what's very important about the two differences in the hotels that I worked at 2 main hotels essentially, was the amount of training that I received. And when you bring an employee into your property, those first few weeks, those first few days, those first few hours are incredibly important because they're afraid, they're a little nervous. There's quite a bit to learn in the hospitality business, no matter what job you're in, especially when it comes to front desk and things like that. So, creating this kind of nurturing environment, making them feel that they're a part of the property so that they stay, fiscally responsible is very important. And if you can really foster that love and make them feel personal about the hotel that they're working at, that's going to continue to pay off down the line. They're going to work harder. They're going to feel, if something goes bad with the hotel, they're going to take that personally. And if you can get an employee to respond to the hotel's problems as if they were their own problems, then you've done a great job at training. And there's no way you're going to get an employee to care about what happens in the hotel or their performance without proper training.
Great. So what kind of training did you experience during your first few days at a hotel that was most beneficial to you?
I remember one particular, the second hotel I was trained individually, and I was brought in, and sort of it was me and me alone, and I was sort of passed off from person to person. I thought one successful way to do it is hiring in batches. If you can get several employees together and bring them all in, even if from disparate departments, it doesn't have to be all front desk agents. But if you're hiring 2 new valets, a doorman, someone from the kitchen, a couple of housekeepers, 2 front desk agents, whatever, if you can somehow group them together and train them all at once, that already creates a sense of community where they don't feel like they're the new person in the cell block and they're being just walked out in front of everyone. They have people that are going through it for the first time. Those are the people that they associate later with the start of the hotel. That's a great way to sort of create a community feel, if possible. Sometimes you really just have to hire people individually and bring them in. But that's an effective method if you can do that. Create like introductory groups. That's a good start. And if you have to train them individually, that's fine. But there has to be specific care taken towards them, and just know that at that point they're going to feel very alone and very confused, and everyone else is going to be looking at them, and they're very aware that they're the new person. So it can be a lot harder to do it that way.
Definitely, great advice. So according to an STR global survey, the shift in a guest's #1 priority has shifted from the comfort of the bed and pillows to the quality of technology that's offered in the hotel room, such as Wi-Fi. So is that something that you experienced? Did you experience that shift in priorities, and did it surprise you at all?
Yeah, I remember specifically I was working in Manhattan at this time, and the hotel that I was working at had some of the rooms had DSL connections. There's not even Wi-Fi at this point, but some of them had DSL connections and some of them didn't. And as a front desk agent, it was increasingly familiar to me to have someone come in and they didn't care. People weren't asking about views anymore. People started asking for DSL. And for a while there, it was like, okay, well, we have a specific clientele that needs DSL. And immediately that just started increasing and increasing and increasing. And then all of a sudden, McDonald's had free Wi-Fi. And here we were in a hotel ill-equipped to provide people with what they now needed and expected. So it's no longer a luxury, as we all know. They even have Wi-Fi in hospitals and everywhere. So it surprised me as much as it surprised anyone that we'd all be so dependent on our smartphones, and in the future that's just going to do nothing but increase, and I'm sure people are going to be able to check in on their smartphone and things of that nature. So yeah, sleeping is important, and obviously heads in beds. That's the nature of the title, that the most important thing in the hospitality business getting heads in beds, and a comfortable bed is part of that. But especially for the business traveler, if they don't have what they need to do business, they don't care if they're sleeping or not.
Definitely. And I know when I travel, I am always looking for opportunities to escape that hotel lobby and, just really do work at the desk in the comfort of my own room. So thank you for that. And then, so going back to training, as far as training on a PMS or POS system, do you think people know how to use the features of their PMS POS system, and are they efficient or effective?
Well, that's incredibly important. The minute you start talking about the system that you're using to running the hotel, that's when things can go really, really horribly wrong. And you need to train on this. I've been trained again where I was sat down in front of a system that it was a sort of a fake system, the exact system I would be using, but I could play around and I could change reservations and make all kinds of mistakes. And they allowed me to do that with a trainer right next to me, and continued to do that for several days on end until I was quite aware that I was no longer making mistakes. And then in another system, I was pretty much thrown to the dogs, and I had a bit of knowledge at that point. They were lucky because if you have an employee that comes to your property and they've dealt with any kind of PMS system before, they're going to have a general knowledge of how a hotel is laid out in a user form, and they'll just be able to sort of switch it around. But you definitely have to pay attention if any new people coming in, if that's the first time they've ever worked with that system, training is absolutely essential, because the minute they're actually dealing with guests and reservations, you can lose a lot of clientele with an untrained agent and somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. So that is absolutely crucial.
Great. And so as far as that training that's offered on the PMS or POS system, what is kind of the staff's overall attitude towards that? And in your experience, what type of training on those new systems work best?
Well, it's important to have both, online training as well as in-person training. Honestly, there can never be enough training on this because there's, I've even experienced some people just have a natural talent towards it, and I feel like I've always been computer savvy, and hopefully any new employees, as the new employees are, growing up and getting older and looking for jobs, they're going to be much more computer savvy just to begin with. But there's a lot of ins and outs, and they really need to be trained properly. And it helps, it helps to have some sort of online training so that you can get down to the business of actually running the hotel. But also person-to-person training is very important. When there's going to be a time where they're no longer training. They're out there. They need to be shadowed at that point. They need to have someone behind them that's watching the moves that they're making. They need to know that it's okay to stop and ask for help. A lot of people, they're new on the job. They don't want to lose the job. And if they're going to stop, if they're going to stop and say, "Oh, I don't know how to do this," the guest is going to be irritated. But that's okay, because that works in the guest's benefit. The guest, even though the guest may be a little irritated, they will understand that someone's training, and you can make that clear to the guest. But if you don't foster the attitude that an employee can stop and ask questions, then they're just going to barrel through things they don't know because they don't want to look like they don't know how to do their job, and that's exactly how they will lose their job. So making sure that they know that they should stop and ask is very, very important, and continuing to keep an eye on them is essential.
Great. So, I know, hotels invest hundreds of thousands of dollars on these new systems. So, just to make sure that they're getting the most out of those new front desk systems, it sounds like training definitely is a #1 priority. And then shifting on to kind of a raging topic in the hospitality industry, it's PCI Compliance. So in your opinion, has the hospitality industry done enough to safeguard customer data?
I think, that's always been important to the hotel industry, but it's not that you can do enough and you're done, because it's a constantly changing market. the way that we're accepting payments, the way that we're sending information, it is constantly changing. The fax machines are coming through with credit card authorizations. People are calling in, using it on their phone. People are booking on the internet. The ways in which we pay constantly change. Now you can just tap your credit card places, and all of a sudden the payment's gone. So you must remain vigilant with this, because people are constantly trying to scam the system in any way possible, and they're very smart. And when it comes down to it, basically it's between them and the front desk or whoever's dealing with the situation. There's plenty of situations where you've got a front desk agent, and they're the one protecting the customer. And if they're not properly trained and they're not taught to look out for very specific things that can happen, then customer data can be lost, and it's always changing. So you must continue to train and stay active on this topic.
Great. And so do you think overall staff members, whether it be a front desk agent, a bellman, or housekeeping, do you think that they're aware of the data security issues that currently face hotels?
Some of them. Front desk, you've got those agents know that they're handling money. They're handling cash. They're handling credit cards. They have authorization forms, things like that. But the minute you stop talking about it, then they start to settle in, and it becomes, there was situations I had at the desk where, I'd be there, and this lady wants to check in, and she says that she's using her husband's credit card, and she has the credit card authorization form, but not the credit card, but it's really just a piece of paper. It hasn't been signed. It hasn't been faxed. It's not authorized by any third party to use. People are constantly trying to cash third-party checks. And as a front desk agent, on a day-to-day basis, these things become, essentially, you just want to get this out of the way. You want to trust the employee. You want to trust the customer, and you want to get them checked into a room that they're happy with, and you feel as if you're bothering them by being vigilant about this. So in order to do a good job, the employee feels like, you know what, it's fine. Let me just put in these credit card numbers. Let me, answer this call that's supposedly from your boss that wants to give me a credit card number that's supposed to pay for the room and tax, and you really want to do a good job. And so you start breaking these rules, and you start sort of moving past it, and you start sort of trusting the customers, because that's what you're taught to do. So it's important not only that you train initially to watch out for these moves, but also that you have constant reminders. You retrain them. Anytime any employee comes to you with a situation that you have not heard before, or something that confused them, that's the time to put out a memo about it. That's the time to talk about it in a staff meeting. That's the time to retrain and continuously tell people that this is an important part of the hotel business, and if you don't stay up on it, you're going to lose, and the customer's going to lose, and everyone's going to lose. And that goes down the line, of course, obviously with front desk agents. But there's a lot of people who have access to customer data, including the fact that you have housekeepers in the hallway that sometimes, I'm locked out of my room. I can describe the luggage that's in the room. Can you just let me in? And of course they can describe the luggage that's in the room because they've been standing in the lobby for 30 minutes watching people check in. So that's their job, their feed. So reminding people that there's a moment at which an employee decides to give access to customer data, whether it be a housekeeper letting someone into a room or a front desk agent, manually inputting credit card numbers. So you need to know that your employees are vigilant and making the right moves.
Definitely. I think you hit the nail on the head there, because, the moment that a data breach happens, hotel executives can look back and say, if I just spent the time, energy, and resources to properly train my employees on something like PCI Compliance, that dollar amount is much less than, say, the cost of a data breach. So.
Oh, absolutely. Training in advance is incredibly important to saving money later. You can ruin your hotel by not training everyone.
Well, thank you so much for answering our questions, and I would like to open it up to our guests. Like I said earlier, if you do have a question to ask Jacob, if you would, just type your name into the chat box, and then I'll call your name, and when your name is called, just unmute your phone and you can ask your question. So what questions do we have? All right, Daniel has a question.
Hi, Jacob. Thanks for doing this webinar. First of all, I wanted to just tell you anecdotally, you ruined my vacation last year with your book. I couldn't get my nose out of it, and all I wanted to do was talk about it with my wife, and it was getting on her nerves. But all the information was in the little tidbits and whatnot. It just captured my imagination. So it's a great book, and for those who haven't read it, I recommend you do so because it's a great read. I saw your reference in the CNN article yesterday on pillows. So I thought it was kind of a little bit of a taste of your of what was in Heads and Beds, and some of the information about the hotel pillow. And you've done a lot of talk about training and things. And I'm just wondering, and since you have such a breadth of understanding of what happens, at every nook and cranny of the hotel, where do you think is the areas of the greatest amount of inefficiency? I mean, what do you think is happening in hotels? If you can think of something or a few things that are happening in hotels around the world every single day, and it's just unbelievably inefficient. Can you think of something like that?
Well, I would. It depends. That's a great question, and thanks also for saying that about my book, and thanks to the Venza Group for having me here. But I think it goes by department. There's inefficiency in every single department, and what I think is most important, or at least I've seen the mistakes that some people are making, is that there's not enough talk with the employees about it. What you have is you have management sort of making decisions on how to do things efficiently. And of course, that's part of the job of management. But really, you need to mine your employees for information, because if you're talking about how to check someone in efficiently, and you're talking about in a room with people that don't check in 250 people a day, if you involving your employees in any discussion, related to efficiency is the most important thing you can do. No one knows how to clean a room more efficiently than a housekeeper. There's no manager in the world that knows how to clean a room more efficiently than a housekeeper. And I think that's sort of at least in the management that I've seen, a bit of a flaw. Everyone wants to have a strong management team, but really listening to your employees and run things by them, see what they do, because especially when it comes to training on the system, I knew shortcuts that management didn't know. And the reason I knew that is because I do it every single day, nonstop. So constantly involving your employees in any kind of policy changes is a great start to eliminating inefficiency. That's it. That's the end of my answer.
Great. Thank you, Jacob. Does anyone else have another question? Oh, was that call for question?
No. I can. Well, I would say that's nice. That was nice of him to point out about the book, and I don't know if anyone else is necessarily familiar with me and the book itself, but I do know that Random House, the push right now, it's in every single major airport, and it is geared towards travelers. So, for better or for worse, anybody in the hotel business, I would think, might want to be aware that you're going to have an increasing number of guests entering your hotel with knowledge gleaned from this book. So it's important whether you read an excerpt or check it out online or read some of the articles or something like that. But hopefully it's not a bad thing for anyone. I'm trying to get everyone on the same page. But there are guests now that constantly ask me via social media and other forums about hotels. People are starting to ask questions again. People are starting to question the way they've been treated in the past and question the way they're going to treat people in the future and question the way they decide which hotel they're going to stay at and where's their money going and how's it being protected. So I constantly receive questions about this, and I answered as many as I can in the book. And I would hope that the hospitality industry takes a moment to take a look at that. I think that's one of the biggest flaws I felt in my entire career in the hospitality business was a complete lack of listening to the employees. And even now I've had some blowback from hotels who try to pretend like my book doesn't exist instead of taking it as an opportunity to learn. In any hotel that refuses to listen to the employees, even when they have bad stuff to say, is headed down the wrong path. Because if you don't listen to your employees, they're not going to listen to the guests.
All right, well, if we don't have any more questions, that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you all for attending, and like Jacob said, please pick up his new paperback book. It's been a company-wide favorite, so you'll love it as well. And if you have any questions, here's my contact information. But thank you so much, Jacob, and tune in next Wednesday, September 4th. We'll have a webinar on Form I-9 compliance. So thank you all. Have a good one.
Thank you.